Hello, my name is Peter Shiavone, Director of Veteran Services for the town of Braintree, and this is Veterans Corner. I want to start the show off today by appealing to the public to please, people in Braintree, please get me the names and addresses of our citizens that are serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. Braintree Veterans Council has appropriated some funds to send them packages and or phone cards and things like that. But I don't have a lot of addresses of our people that are serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. So if you can get in touch with me, bring the addresses into my office or call me at 781-794-8217, and I'd be happy to send your loved one a phone card, a package, or whatever we're going to send them, and acknowledge that they're there. We want to make sure that they know that we're proud of them serving their country. Also, on that note, returning veterans, if you know of any returning veterans that are having any difficulties, people had problems serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, as we did with Vietnam. We had people who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. It was 20 years before VA actually did anything regarding post-traumatic stress with the Vietnam veterans. I think the VA is on top of things right now with the Iraq War veterans. Programs are in place to help them out, and I think that you should get those people who need help to me as soon as you can. I have the resources to help them get through any difficult times they may be having. Also, excuse me, I want to acknowledge the fact that the Congress has approved the largest VA budget in history. President Bush and Secretary Principe did a lot of work on this budget, and it is the largest in history. Hopefully, it'll be sufficient to help our returning troops and maintain our health care system for all veterans. Now, today, my special guest is John Laukkanen, who was a Marine Corps veteran of World War II. He's a Quincy native, and he's a member of the Marine Corps League Caddy Detachment, and he served with the 6th Marine Division in the Pacific. Welcome, John. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you joined the Marine Corps and how your service progressed to where you ended up in the Pacific?
Well, it could be an odd story. I was working in the shipyard down in Fall River, and I got a call from the draft board saying that you're drafted. And so with a group of people from West Quincy, we went into the federal building in Boston, and after about 3 hours of being examined and pushed and poked around and so forth, we ended up going to the top floor for the recruiting officers. Well, all of us went together for the Army, and I got upstairs and looked and saw a line about a block long, and I wanted to get out of there. I didn't want to hang around. So I looked over toward the Navy, and there was another block-long line. And then I looked over toward the Marine recruiter, and there was a sergeant with his feet up on the desk reading a comic book because there was nobody there. So I figured, I'm going to get out of here, and I joined
What year
the
was
Marine
this,
Corps.
John? What year was this?
1943.
After the war was in full swing.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so you joined the Marine Corps at that time?
At that time, went down to Parris Island, and then up to Camp Lejeune. Then I went to Chicago, spent a month there, taking other courses, and then I went to the West Coast at Camp Pendleton. Mm-hmm. At Camp Pendleton, a group of us helped train a number of Army officers for beach landings, because the Army was apparently going to be moving to the Pacific also as the war was winding down in Europe. And it was nice to be a private and be bossing colonels and majors and lieutenants around for a month. And they threw us a nice beer bus as a thank you. We actually went out and got aboard ship and made a landing on San Clemente Island. And one of the notable things that I remember was that up on a hill overlooking the beach where we made the landing, President Roosevelt was there with his dog Fowler watching us.
Wow.
So it was quite a thrill to see him up there.
That's quite a memory. Now, how long were you away from home once you entered the Marine Corps and started your duties?
Just about a month short of 2 years.
For 2 years you were
Yeah.
away from home.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the 6th Marine Division, which was a new division that formed for a specific reason, I think.
Yes, well, we went down to Guadalcanal, and it was after the island was secured. And the 6th Marine Division was formed there at that time, made up of various units, like the 3rd Division and part of the 1st, and a whole group. And we trained there for a number of months, and then we went to Okinawa for the landing on April 1st, which was April 1st. It was April Fool's Day, Easter Sunday, and D-Day all round into one.
So that was April 1st, 1945.
45,
we landed
yes,
on
sir.
Okinawa.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
Okinawa was one of the bloodiest battles of the war. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences on that island? I mean, I know it wasn't just a Marine Corps venture. There was the Army was involved.
Yes, it was.
And-
And I guess we landed about halfway up the island and opposite Yontown Airfield. And my particular unit crossed the island within 24 hours and cut the island in half. All of the opposition apparently had been decoyed and went to one end of the island so that we could do that rather rapidly. And then we advanced north, and the Army unit went south. We secured the northern end, and then we got word that the Army was pinned down and couldn't move, so our outfit was then headed south.
So the Marine Corps was going to rescue the Army.
Yes.
They've done
yeah.
that. They've done that a lot.
Yes, yeah. Well, we were under the command of an Army general.
I see.
Lieutenant General Buckner, his name was. In fact, he was killed on Okinawa.
Wow.
Yeah.
An officer in general
later
got killed
on
in
the
action.
campaign. Yes, yeah.
That tells you how bloody that battle was.
No, nobody could hide from it. There was no question. Yeah.
Right. Now, what about at that time of the war, the Japanese were using the kamikazes
Yes,
a lot.
yeah.
Now, we obviously had ships in the water there. Did you witness any kamikaze attacks on our ships?
Almost every day. In fact, when we were approaching Okinawa to make our landing, a group of kamikaze planes come down and got some of the ships in our flotilla.
Wow.
So it was right from day one that they were coming constantly. And I guess the destroyers probably were the greatest number that were sunk, because they were in a perimeter protecting the other ships, and the kamikaze would get them. But I did witness one instance where we had a white-painted Red Cross ship in our harbor, and a kamikaze come down right, hit it dead
Wow.
on, and killed a great number of the patients that were there.
A hospital ship.
So they absolutely ignored all the niceties, if there is such a thing, of a war.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I know that when you're in combat like that and you're serving with your fellow Marines, you kind of make a lot of close friendships.
Yes.
And those friendships sometimes last a lifetime. Are you still in touch, or were you in touch over the years with some of your comrades that you served with in the Pacific?
In fact, my closest friend, his name was William Henry Hank Bean, became Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps.
Wow, that's quite an honor.
And was stationed in Washington, of course, and as he put it, generals don't tell me what to do.
Well, for our viewers out there, that's the highest rank that you can attain as an enlisted man
Yes.
in the Marine Corps. And so that's quite an honor to be
And
top.
so we were close together, and we went up to Tsingtao together and so forth. And his wife was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps also.
Oh, wow.
And so we used to kid an awful lot the fact that he had to take orders from his wife because she outranked him.
Officer, yeah.
And he passed away here a couple of years ago, and I still maintain contact with his wife.
Wow, that's great.
I belong to the JASCO, Joint Assault Signal Company Association, and we hold reunions every year. And 2 years ago, we went to San Diego for a reunion, and I met Hank's wife down there. She lives in California.
Yeah.
and get in touch with her physically. And so in fact, one of the women now from the 6th Marine Division Association, whose father was a Marine in the association, is writing a cookbook and getting letters. It's half cookbook and half history of the 6th Marine Division.
Wow, that's interesting.
She has asked for pictures and stories and everything else, and she's publishing it. In fact, she is going to the printers today out in California to have the book printed.
Wow, that's great.
And so there will be, I have several stories and pictures in it also.
Now, is there any other people you serve with from around this area, this part of the country that you remember or talk to?
We have a number of people. In fact, I have several from Quincy that I met later in the Marine Corps and found out they were from Quincy. And we see each other every once in a while. We send Christmas cards back and forth. That's probably, birthday cards and Christmas cards seem to be the major.
Now, after Okinawa, you moved on to Tsingtao?
Well, we went, the outfit was moved back to Guam first for, we were going to have a training period there to land in Japan.
Oh, I see.
That was ready. And in fact, going back to Guam, we ended up on the tail end of the typhoon, where even battleships were damaged because it was such a severe typhoon.
Reading about that, yeah.
And there was a case of where we were on top deck because the hold was full of equipment. It was an LST that I was on at that time. And when the typhoon hit, our cots and all our gear was just washed overboard. We lost it all. Wow. Which meant we got surveyed later and got extra uniforms, brand new ones and so forth. But the ship would be up, and then all of a sudden you're looking down into nothing but water. It was quite a scary experience. But we may, in this case, all of a sudden we came to a stop, and it seemed that the doors on the LST opened up. The electrical unit was damaged. But of course, the loading ramp was watertight, and that was still up, so we weren't sinking or anything. So several of us had asked to go down below decks, and there's a manual crank that we turned to pull the door shut again. And when we had completed that, and this I say is one of the most heroic deeds I saw, a sailor went in a breeches buoy over the bow and tack welded it shut so that we could proceed again. And we got to Guam, and then he had to go over again to burn the weld off so we could get off the ship.
Wow. See, sometimes heroic things are done, and you don't even notice them sometimes.
No, that's right.
Until you think about it afterwards, and it's like, that was a heroic deed.
And then all of a sudden, with shouts of glee and joy, we heard the atom bomb had been dropped while we were on Guam. And so our outfit was split. Half of us went to Tsingtao, China, to help repatriate the Japanese forces there, and the other half went to Japan to be at the surrender ceremonies there.
Now tell us about Tsingtao. What went on? You witnessed quite an event at Tsingtao. What was that?
Well, Tsingtao itself was built by the German Navy around 1890.
Now Tsingtao, that's mainland China.
Yes,
City in China.
It's up about opposite North Korea.
Okay.
And the Navy there had a base for their eastern base. So it's still full of a lot of German families, schools, churches, and everything else. And so we got aboard. Surrender ceremonies were held where the commanding general of the Marine Corps accepted the surrender sword from the Japanese forces. And then we saw that the Japanese forces were put aboard ship and sent back to Japan.
So those people were prisoners of war at that time?
They were prisoners of war.
How many were there roughly?
There were, as I understand, there were close to 10,000 Japanese troops in that area.
Wow.
Because they had been all over northern China at that time.
Right. That's a lot of prisoners to move out and take care of.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's quite an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while you were away, while you were in the Pacific, an event occurred. Your daughter was born, I believe, while you were overseas. That
Yes. My daughter Judy was born, and she was 1 month short of 2 years old when I saw her for the first time.
Wow.
I think that's one of the few times I wiped a few tears, because when I got home, my wonderful wife had talked about Daddy, and when I got off the taxi cab in front of my house, little Judy come running out to me yelling Daddy with her arms out.
Oh,
and it was quite an occasion.
It's moving. What were you thinking when you heard that you had a child back home and you were still in harm's way?
Well, I was down in Guadalcanal at the time, and wasn't getting any mail from my wife, but I did get one from my mother-in-law, and she talked about the baby.
Oh.
I didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl. And I didn't know that for about 3 or 4 months. And then I received a picture of my wife with the baby in her arms, and the baby's first Christmas. And
That's quite
that made my day.
It's odd. I served with a Quincy Marine who his child was born while he was in Vietnam. Unfortunately, he passed away. Jerry Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you're active with the Caddy Post.
Yes, sir.
And I think there's a picture of Jerry Peterson in the Caddy Post.
Yeah.
In the lounge there or something. Yeah. And I served with Jerry Peterson in Vietnam. He was a good kid. And I remember him being so excited that he had a baby. Unfortunately, in his case, he didn't make it home.
Yeah,
but you're involved in the Marine Corps League, the Caddy Post.
Yes, I'm one of the original founders of it in October of 1946. I became commandant in 1952.
I see.
And there is a large portrait of Bill Caddy in the hall. It's from an enlarged photograph that my wife colored. She did photo coloring while I was in the service as one of her means of income to help her keep going. And so kind of proud of her memory there.
Sure.
And
now, for our viewers, the Caddy Post, William Caddy Post in Quincy, is a Marine Corps League headquarters named after Marine Corps veteran Caddy, William Caddy,
yes,
who was a Medal of Honor recipient.
On Iwo Jima.
On Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
So that's what they got their name from that.
There is a wonderful park on Wollaston Beach.
Yes.
Named for him, and services are held there every year.
Right. And obviously a very heroic Marine who went above and beyond the call of duty. Well, John, you've become a bit of an author and an artist, and you've got a couple of books out. One here, World War II Overseas Daily Diary.
Yes.
This is the book that he has. I don't know if you can see it on camera there, and he's got sketches in here. And tell us a little bit how you put your diary together, how you remember things.
When we went in the service, my church, the Bethany Congregational Church on Quincy Square, gave each of us a pocket Bible. And so I attempted every day to read one page of the Bible, whether it was morning, noon, or night, whenever it was possible. And once I got aboard ship and got out of sight of land, I thought, gee, who knows whether you're coming back or not. I'd like to leave some sort of a record for my wife and child. And so on the periphery of every page, as I read it, I wrote down what I considered the major incident of that particular day. And then when I got home, I put the book away and forgot about it for about 30 or 40 years. Yeah. And when my oldest daughter, Judy, the one that I hadn't met, by the way, she's a school nurse down at North Elementary Grammar School in Pembroke.
I see. Yeah.
And so she said, Dad, why don't you write something about your experiences so that the family will have the record. So I dug up the old Bible and used it as a guide to write that book.
Well, that's great.
In there I also included poems to my wife that I wrote. And the reason for that was that once you wrote 1 or 2 letters, there was nothing to talk about other than the sun, the rain, and the heat, and that was it. So I decided to draw a picture wherever I was. I didn't have a camera, So I draw a picture and include it with a letter to her each time.
So you kept your diary on the periphery pages of the
book,
pages
yeah.
of the Bible. Let me see that.
Yeah.
This is the Bible. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's kind of small, but this is where he wrote his notes on the edge of the page, his diary basically, and then he turned it into this book here with all kinds of sketches. And I was looking through the book and I saw some of the sketches of the terrain. And being a Vietnam veteran myself, it seems to be similar to some of the landscape that I saw.
It's a Pacific.
And I see you have the 55-gallon drum up there for your shower.
Right.
As we did the same thing when we could take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting that you become a little bit of an author. And also you wrote a book on the Quincy quarries.
Yes.
Called Gold and Gloom.
Gold and Gloom.
This is another book that John Laukkanen
Actually,
has written.
I was attending a book signing by the director of the Quincy Historical Society, and after the signing, we got talking, and he mentioned that the society did not have a complete record of the drownings in the quarries. And he said, if you're not doing anything, why don't you do a little research on it and see what you come up with? Well, I spent 3 years on it, and
Wow.
I ended up, the first half of the book, The Gold, is pictures of the buildings and monuments throughout the world built of Quincy granite.
I see.
The second half, The Gloom, is the stories of people drowning in the quarries. And there are 51 different stories of murders, suicides, and accidents.
Wow. That's interesting. Interesting.
By the way, I'm working on a third book, which is a fundraiser for our church. It's a cookbook.
Well, that's great. That's great that you can do a little bit of writing and a little drawing. I mean, it's, John's 85 years old. God bless him. Talk about the Marine Corps a little bit. The Marine Corps that you were in, obviously, is a little bit different from the Marine Corps of today. Have you talked with any young Marines, any Marines from either Vietnam or from back from Iraq or Afghanistan?
Yeah, at the detachment meetings, once in a while we do, but no one seems to be too eager to talk about anything. We recall the fun things, the hell raising and so forth,
Yeah.
rather than the serious things. And
Yeah, I see. Well, the Marine Corps has always maintained a lot of camaraderie. Everyone's always stayed close. I know I stay close to the guys that I served with, and you mentioned a few that you served with. In all your experiences during World War II, I know you highlighted the birth of your daughter. That was quite a memorable thing. Is there anything else that you can remember that very distinctly that happened to you?
Yeah, at one point, we were about halfway down the island heading south, and we came to a mountainous section, and the Japanese had a gun hidden in a cave on railroad tracks, and they would roll it out and fire at our ships in the harbor.
This is a big cannon.
There's a big cannon.
Yeah.
And I was an outpost with a couple men. What we were doing, the JASCO outfit is air-ground liaison and naval gunfire control and so forth. So we would pinpoint a target and send the coordinates over radio to the ships. And so we spotted the cave, and we asked for a ship to fire into it. And they sent the battleship New Yorker there, and we gave her the coordinates. She had just spent a month off of Iwo Jima firing and had burned out her barrels.
Oh.
Consequently, she had no control over where these shots were going. We'd give her the coordinates, and she'd go either side or over and everything else. So we said, well, gee, that's no good. We need another ship. Well, evidently there was a destroyer close by, and all they had was a 5-inch gun. So they gave us the destroyer. We gave him the coordinates. The first shot, he was over the top. The second shot, he went right into the cave.
Wow, what shooting.
Perfect shot. And of course, we shouldn't do it, but we hollered over the radio, and everybody heard, you know. And on came a radio call from the skipper of the destroyer. And he says, if anybody from that outfit is along the beach, give us a call. So our skipper turned around to Hank Bean, who I mentioned earlier, and says, here, you take a Jeep, and all you guys pick up any souvenirs we can see around here. And we got a whole bunch of what we considered junk, threw them into a bag, and we went down to the beach, and the Pioneer Battalion, who control the beach activities, radioed the destroyer, and the captain's gig came in and picked the two of us up.
Oh, wow.
And when we got aboard ship, he said, take those souvenirs and just dump them on the deck, and the sailors can pick what they want out of it. You two come down below decks. And we sat down to the most wonderful meal.
Wow.
After eating Spam and stuff. It was great. So then he said, and now look, when you go back, he gave us a case of eggs and a case of oranges. And that made our outfit very happy when we arrived at the shore with that.
Fresh food.
Yeah.
That's rare.
Yeah,
That's
it was
rare
great.
with
So
the
that was quite an experience.
That is quite, I mean, that's great shooting.
Yeah.
And you
Oh,
guys
it
are
was, yeah.
ones that called it in.
Right.
And that's excellent. Well, John, I'm telling you, I'm very impressed by all your stories and the things you've done. I think it's people of your generation that are, very proud, and I hope our viewers out there realize that it's because of people like John here that we enjoy the freedom that we have today. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
I thank you
And
for having me,
thank
Peter.
you for your service. And I want everyone to remember out there that freedom is not free.